I just wanted to say a few things about Metro Exodus. I'm avoiding calling this a review because it sounds a bit formal. It's more a collection of personal thoughts, semi-coherently rambled over some game footage. This video is going to be a bit strange because I'm going to start by telling you how much I like the game, then I'm going to bring up loads of things I didn't like, only to conclude that in the end I really liked the game. The Metro games, Metro 2033 and Last Light, had impressed on me enough that Exodus is actually the first game that I've ever pre-ordered. I even went as far to purchase the Aurora Limited Edition, which includes the game, obviously, a dynamic theme for the PlayStation home screen, okay, a World of Metro art book, pretty cool, access to the expansion pass, great, an exclusive steelbook, and of course the exclusive pre-order bonus Spartan Survival Manual, which, and let's be fair, is a half-assed piece of crap. Seriously, just look at this section on the team. Recently, 4A Games dropped what is hopefully the first of much DLC for Metro Exodus in the form of New Game Plus, so I've played through again after a few weeks off and attempted to crystallise my thoughts, as it were. I think it's a reasonable period of time to form an honest view of the game, and it avoids the New Game honeymoon period effect, or any knee-jerk reactions. Just a warning, there will be spoilers. First off, I have to say that Metro Exodus is visually lush. It looks amazing. The lighting's really good, the textures are incredible. This level of detail can be found all over the game's visuals. The environments just look so well crafted, I found myself exploring abandoned buildings, staring at mundane domestic items with far greater interest than they should probably warrant. Also, Artyom has legs and a pair of very comfy looking socks. Music is subtle, never in your face, even in the frantic moments, and I think the main refrain that repeats throughout the game, in various tones, is a great bit of music. Definitely gets in your head. The game progresses like previous Metro games with a linear route, which is fine. There's still different outcomes based on your overall in-game behaviour, which is a mechanic I've always liked about Metro, but there are no branches to the game. Big difference though is the introduction of the open world levels. I think a level by level breakdown is probably necessary so you can follow my thought roller coaster. The opening level is good. We start in the Metro tunnels, it's dark, it's creepy, the pipes carry the voices of the Metro's lost souls. It feels like home. We meet the team, we listen to some NPCs talk, they build some immersion, and eventually we find our way onto the Aurora via a combination of action and stealth. It plays out with everything that is great about previous Metro games. Onto the Volga, and we are released into the first open world level. I really like this level. It's grim and inhospitable, and whilst it is an open level to a fair degree, the environment seems to funnel you towards danger. Whether it's bodies of water, radiation zones, or rows of abandoned trains, it can feel like you're still in a tunnel, and you have to face what's in front of you. I thought the inclusion of the electrical anomalies that seem to almost patrol the level at night was brilliant. The supernatural element of the Metro world is one of my favourite parts. So after a lot of rain and fish praising, we end up in the Yamantau bunker, with a bunch of cannibals. I have to admit, the more I thought about this level, the more silly it became. I'm just not convinced a society of people could survive for 20 years, as suggested, eating exclusively human flesh. There are too many health risks with that particular lifestyle, and I did not see a single vegetable in that bunker. In fact, the whole place seemed a health hazard. I'm just not sure how anyone survived in there. But I'll let this slide because I think this was more an exercise in dehumanisation, so that we were free to go on a conscience-free killing rampage. All in all, it was a fun level. After Yamantau, we arrive in the Caspian, the second open world level. A sprawling desert littered with the remains of boats and ships. This is my second least favourite level. Let me explain why. There is a twisted thrill I get from the unease of traipsing through dark, claustrophobic tunnels alone. Knowing that you have no choice but to walk towards inevitable danger carries with it a nervous exhilaration. The fear of the unknown is acute and constant. I never really felt this with a view of the sky. I definitely never felt this when I could run in any direction. Yes, there were parts of the level where we were forced into these kinds of situations, but they were fleeting, and the respite was overly generous. Figuratively, the journey through the Caspian felt like a hike, and literally, when I got the van hung up on a sand dune. Honestly, I didn't really enjoy the fetch quest nature of the Caspian, and overall the story felt too much like a power fantasy.
Was that you who freed those slaves? I see it in your eyes.
Another thing that became apparent in the world outside the metro tunnels is that mutants no longer seem as threatening. They've been downgraded from hostile neighbours to dangerous wildlife simply to be avoided. Even their physical appearances seem less scary. The human animals do get credit though. These brick-lobbing man-beasts can get out of hand in their large numbers, especially in enclosed spaces, which made for some exciting encounters. My only issue is that I couldn't help but think of Ludo from the Labyrinth whenever I heard this noise.
No, stop that!
Clearly, this was nobody's fault. After the Caspian, we wind up in the Forest Valley of the Tiger, and I'm sorry to say, my least favourite level. On my first playthrough, it was really good fun because it's probably the most stealth-heavy level in the game, but on all subsequent playthroughs, it failed to feel threatening. One could argue that any level that you know the layout of is going to be less daunting, and this is certainly true, but I think the atmosphere of the level wasn't uncomfortable enough. I felt like I was the danger. I was the one who knocked. I'm thinking to myself as I write this that maybe this was the point. The emphasis on stealth for much of the level is as much a responsibility to the people whose lives we have intruded upon as it is a survival tactic. A careful journey through a beautiful and idyllic setting, deliberately avoiding contact with a society that is in its infancy. We come to recognise and understand their innocence as we hear the people talk. Maybe, just maybe, we can preserve its purity. And maybe it's the knowledge of the fate that will befall them that has corrupted my hope for these people and rendered this an exercise in futility. And whilst we're in this trough, I'll just dig a little deeper. Throughout the whole game, I don't recall getting any feelings of desperation that Metro had given me in the past. I never panicked because I didn't have enough filters or ammunition in a particular situation. Even on Ranger Hardcore mode, I never felt out of my depth. Supplies never felt tight. My mind goes back to previous Metro games when I was running from corpse to corpse, grabbing filters on a constant countdown to death to get through a level. Heart racing, palms sweating. I was surviving on the edge. Now I just craft my way out of trouble. Now you may be thinking, and you'd be correct if you are, this is Metro Exodus. We've left the Metro behind and all that goes with it. We have left the darkness and desperation and walked into the light. Before, our adventures were mostly lonely affairs with the grand goal of saving everybody. Now we are closely tied to a small group of friends, and they are all that matters. Metro is, I think, a humanist story. What 4A and Dmitry Glukhovsky have managed to do here is continue the story, but explore it from a slightly different angle. Every level has a story to tell about its inhabitants, and you have a choice as to your role in that story. But the consequences of your actions are manifest by a small group of individuals with which more intimate relationships are built. You'll have noticed that in my brief level-by-level commentary that I failed to mention the in-betweeny levels, winter, spring, summer and fall. The levels where we are aboard the Aurora with nothing else to do except walk around and interact with the other members of the crew. These were without a doubt some of my favourite moments. Not just Artyom's interactions, but how different members of the crew interacted with each other. Of particular note is Nastya, the small girl whom we rescued from the Volga along with her mother. Once aboard the Aurora, Nastya takes to referring to members of the crew as auntie and uncles. This really hits home and helps develop a feeling of family very early on in the game. Just a side note, when I was playing Metro last night, my daughter was watching when I encountered one of the children at the station, and we could not contain our amused revulsion at how creepy the kid was. The character design and animation in Exodus is such a massive improvement. The devs have done a great job. Nastya does look genuinely adorable. But back on the track. Personally, I got to know each character and started to feel a responsibility toward them. I found I genuinely cared about my team, my crew, my family. So now we're flying back up the other side of the big dip of this roller coaster, and we arrive at the final level, the dead city of Novosibirsk. This level is epic. Everything I loved about Metro that I felt was missing so far is delivered here like a double shot of anti-rad. A blizzard sweeps through this eerily empty urban centre as we drive down its claustrophobic streets. There aren't even any corpses to be seen. The Geiger counter clicks away, the only threat here is staying still, and once again we are ushered toward danger. So we end up back in the Metro. This feels like a homecoming of sorts, as Colonel Miller says. We are in our element here. The haunted carriages, the close encounters. Then we're on our own and the path ahead becomes a little darker. We take a slow boat ride through the putrid tunnel as life forms better adapted to the environment take advantage of our vulnerability. There's no running away from this. And just when we think the physical threat is gone, our radiation-ravaged body collapses and drags our mind with it. It's hard to tell what's real now, and this is gloriously disconcerting. Objects levitate, there are strange beams of light. We hear the thoughts of giant optically challenged primates. Creeping around a confined area in close proximity to a number of large animals who are telepathically telling you that they consider you food is an unnerving experience. It definitely resulted in some of my most heart-pounding moments. After escaping the blind ones, we experience horrifying reminders of why we're here. Anna appears to us in bittersweet radiation-induced hallucinations, only for us to be abruptly pulled face to face with our grisly reality. We are truly back in the dark world of the Metro that I love, and I really like the final section as we drive back to the Aurora. I think the music here is excellent, and it feels like a fitting end to the Dead City adventure. Now we're at the end of the game, and I thought it was great how the developers determined whether we get the good ending, in inverted commas, or the bad ending. Simply, if you kept your team together, there is enough blood to save your life with a transfusion. It fits perfectly with the events of the whole story. There are lots of other little details, both good and bad, that I could talk about, like glorious ragdoll physics, like glitches, like getting stuck for no reason, to name a few. But this video has already gone on longer than I intended, so I'll wrap up here. I really enjoyed the Metro Exodus experience. The story and the immersive world of Metro was what attracted me to the original game, and I'm glad this has continued and developed. Previously, the relationships with other characters and companions we encountered on our journey felt brief and transitory. Exodus has made them more permanent and meaningful, which has added a more personal element to the immersion. I would be seriously amazed if this was the end of the line for the Metro franchise. Molodets, and thank you to 4A Games and Dmitry Glukhovsky, and thank you for watching my video. Take care of my Juvex, and I'll catch you later.
Who the fuck just made that noise over there? Fuck. I gotta go check on these.
Now stop that!
You crawl back to the Aurora alone. I can't turn back before I find that medicine. Here, take my hand. I'll help you up.